Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello guys, today's material is popular methodology and basic definitions about approach, method, procedure, and technique. And it will be presented by group 3, which are Dewi Aprilia Kapota, that's me, Asmi Latifa, Syafa Setioning Tias, and Anissa Ilsanti. So first of all, we're going to talk about basic definitions. Approach refers to the theory about natural language and language learning. It will be talking about how language is used and how people acquire a language. The next is method. Method is the practical realization of an approach. And the next is the procedure. So procedure is an ordered sequence of techniques. And techniques. Technique is a performance of an activity and is a part of the procedure. So the next one is the grammar translation, direct method, and audiolingualism. It is the first one of popular methodology. So first of all, we're going to talk about grammar translations. In grammar translations, the students were given an explanation of individual points of grammar, and the students were given sentences which exemplified these points. And also, the sentences have to be translated from the target language back to the student's first language and vice versa. And the next is direct method. In direct method, the translation is abandoned in favor of the teacher and the students speaking together, and the sentence is still the main object of interest, and the target language should be used in the classroom. And the next is audiolingualism. In audiolingualism, it uses stimulus-response reinforcement model to create a good habit in language learner. And audiolingualism relies heavily on drills, and they stay at the sentence level, and there is a little placing of language in real life context. So then, the next one is presentation, practice, and production. PPP refers to variations on an audiolingualism, and the main departure of an audiolingualism was to place the language in clear context. So the next is the procedure of PPP. The first one is presentation. In the presentation, the teacher will introduce the situation which contextualizes the language to be taught. And in the practice, the student will practice the language using accurate reproduction technique. And the next is production. In the production, students will make a new sentence of their own. And in this example, the teacher wants to focus on constructing words, and the teacher will give a clue about constructing words. For example, the word he and is become his. And then the teacher will ask the student, can anybody tell me what is George doing? And the teacher will give a clue that he is listening to the music. And the next is the practice. In the practice, the teacher will ask the students, what is the girl doing? What is Yusa doing? Without give them a clue. And from the first example, the first clue, it hopes that the students will answer she is reading a book. And in the productions, it hopes that the students can make a new example of constructing words.
My name is Syafa Setioning Tias. I would like to explain to a popular methodology. The first is alternative to PPP, or presentation, practice, and production. The second is our method. The first is alternative to PPP. There are several models in PPP for training purpose as a teaching producer, for teacher to employ rather than to make a good teaching, and the achievement is not exact but flexible. There are 3 points in alternative to PPP that I would like to explain. The first is Deep and Strategy by Johnson. Kate Johnson, 1982, suggested that the deep end strategy were encouraging the student into immediate production, throwing them into the deep end, throwing the producer on the head. The teachers can see if and where students are having problems during the production phase and return to either presentation or practice, as when necessary after the production phase is over. After a few years, Don Bryan 1986 suggested the same thing. They are joining the three phases in a circle, and the teacher and student can decide at which stage or enter the producer. A different strategy of teaching sequence element is ASA, Engage, Study, and Activate by Harmer 2007. Engage stands for arousal and affect, the important for successful learning, and S stands for study, and describes any teaching and learning elements where the focus is on how something is constructed. The last is activate. Activates means stage at which students are encouraged to use all and or any of the language they know. The next is four method. Four method were developed in 1970 and 1980, and their influence is still felt until today. The first is community language learning. Students are gathered in a circle and reflect on how they felt about the activities with the teacher's help. Second is total physical response, or we can say it as TPR. TPR lesson involve the student and teacher telling student a comment, and student must do an action as a response to the every comment or language that they hear. The third is Suggestopedia. Students must be made as comfort as possible in class, must be relaxed to make the students study happily and so that their affective filter is lowered. The last is the silent way. Teachers must be quiet or say as little as possible in the class, and the student must be active. Because of the teacher's silent non-involvement, it is up to the student under the controlling but indirect influence of the teachers to solve problem and learn the language. Caleb Cataneo, the founder of the method, says or believes that learning is the best facilitated if the learner discovers or creates language rather than just remembering or repeating what has been taught.
Now I'm going to tell you about communicative language teaching, or CLT. What is CLT? Communicative language teaching, or CLT, is an approach to teaching second and foreign languages that emphasizes interaction as both the means and the end goal of language learning. The activities that CLT used are such as role play, simulation, and sharing information. For example, students might simulate a television program or a scene at an airport, or they might put together the simulated front page of a newspaper. In other CLT activities, the students have to solve a puzzle and can only do so by sharing information. Sometimes they have to write a poem or construct a story together. And what is the difference between non-communicative activities and CLT activities? As you can see here, in CLT activities, students should have a desire to communicate something. They should have purpose for communicating. They should be focused on the content of what they are saying or writing rather than just on a particular language form. They should use a variety of language rather than just one language structure.
The teacher will not intervene to stop the activity, and their material will not dictate what specific language forms the students use either. I'm going to tell you about task-based learning, or TBL, or it also known as task-based instruction, or TBI. And what is TBL? TBL is a method of sequencing activities in lessons. Students are given a task to perform, and only when the task has been completed does the teacher discuss the language that was used, making correction and adjustment with the student's performance of the task has shown to be desirable. Basic stages of TBL are the pre-task, the task cycle, and language focus. In the pre-task stage, the teacher explores the topic with the class and might highlight useful words and phrases, helping students to understand the task instruction. The student might hear a recording of other people doing the same task. During the task cycle, the student perform the task in pairs or small groups while the teacher monitor from a distance. The students then plan how they will tell the rest of the class what they did and how it went, and then report of the task either orally or in writing, or compare notes what has happened. In the language focus stage, the students examine and discuss specific features or of any listening or reading text which they have looked at for the task. Or the teacher may conduct some form of practice of specific language features which the task have provoked. That's all from me. The next material will be presented.
And the next is the lexical approach. The lexical approach discussed by Dave Willis and popularized by Michael Lewis. Michael Lewis states that language do not consist of traditional grammar and vocabulary, but are often made of multi-word, prefabricated pieces. These are lexical chunks and other word combinations discussed in Chapter 2, namely collocations, idioms, fixed and semi-fixed, an important part of language. Michael Lewis proposes that eloquence is the result of large store for any linguistic novelty or creativity. So here are some of the problems faced in teaching language using a lexical approach. The first is no one has yet explained how learning of fixed and semi-fixed phrases can be incorporated into understanding language systems. And the second is determine how we would order the phrases for teaching learning purposes. Despite the reservations, however, the lexical approach has certainly drawn our attention to facts about the compositions of language. What it has not yet done is to make the leap from the two set of pedagogic principles or syllabus specifications which could be incorporated into a method. And the next is teachers and students in dialogue together. Inspired by the film Dogma 95, Scott Turnberry for writing an unusually provocative short article. Describes an original article published in 2000 showing that ELT requires similar salvage action, particularly a return to a material and technology-free classroom where language occurs when teachers and students engage in dialogical relationships. This original article provoked a great deal of interest, and a group of teachers emerged who want to apply certain principles to language learning. They argue that language is co-constructed between teacher and student, where it appears as compiled by the teacher rather than is acquired. Furthermore, Angel's Clemente mentions that when I teach, I definitely do more than just talk, and that is why teachers all over the world still have students attending their classes. So that's all for our presentations. Thanks for your attention.